Welcome to the third Sunday of Easter. My name is Tammy Liddell. I'm the Director of Campus Ministry at Seattle University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you here to break open the scripture with me today. The Gospel according to Luke. That very day, the first day of the week, two of Jesus' disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus, and they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place there in these days?" And he replied, "What sort of things?" They said to him, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet, mighty in deed and word, before God and all the people. But our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. We were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the third day since this took place. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and they didn't find his body. They came back and reported that they had seen a vision of angels who announced that he was alive. And then some of us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see." And he said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke. Was it not necessary that Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on farther. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went to stay with them. And it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were opened and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us when he spoke to us on the way and opened the scripture to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. The Gospel of the Lord. The psalmist tells us today, "Lord, you will show us the path of life." In this time of stay at home, for many of us, the paths in our neighborhoods and streets are becoming way more familiar than we ever thought they would. The path to my refrigerator, also very familiar. When I'm out grocery shopping, pretty focused on the quickest path back home. My spouse has been in his hometown caring for his father since most of the country shut down. While preparing during that time for his canceled half marathon, he also started walking. His old paper route that he traveled by bike in his childhood became his daily path. He discovered one big difference between running that path and walking it. The difference is he's wearing his glasses. What was a familiar blur to him became crystal clear in the past few weeks. He started noticing everything: the variety and beauty of the foliage, its gradual emergence from winter into spring during the time that he's been there, the chalkboard left by a boy in the neighborhood with a different encouraging message or joke written on it every day, the fox, emboldened by the lack of traffic, using the middle of the road to commute to his lunch in the nearby woods every day. walking with glasses has made all the difference. The story of the disciples on the road to Emmaus is a quintessential lesson in paying attention while walking and our innate tendency to do just the opposite. The disciples walking, conversing, debating on the way, I picture them very distracted, not paying attention to their surroundings, probably hurrying in their agitation and confusion over these, tough experiences that they just had. The trip to Emmaus wasn't long, it was only a 3-hour walk. But into this tense and hasty trip arrives Jesus. I picture them needing to slow down, maybe even stopping suddenly and looking at him as they express their incredulity at his ignorance of what's been happening. So understandably wrapped up in their own lives that they can't believe someone doesn't share in their distress and match their mood. So Jesus joins them. They start walking more slowly, stopping perhaps at times to listen more carefully. And I'm sure arriving in Emmaus much later than they would have done with just the two of them. And as with many memorable moments on our paths, in retrospect, maybe that trip seemed to last forever and at the same time go by very quickly. We know their joy, the joy in their hearts, was unnoticed by the disciples until after they recognized Jesus in the bread of life. Lord, you will show us the path of life. And as they pondered this experience of walking with Jesus, I wonder if they mourned the lost miles in which they could have recognized him, time they could have savored on the path with their beloved teacher and friend. One of the elements of Ignatian spirituality in Jesuit education is the imperative to pay attention. We understand that God is being revealed to us in every way, all the time, in all that is around us, and through all of our experiences. We are tasked with noticing that, to paraphrase Alice Walker in The Color Purple, to notice that God is trying to get our attention all the time. When we hear the Ignatian expression, seeking God in all things, it means all things. This call to be attentive doesn't mean that we're always going to be successful in the finding. Nobody is that attentive. But we do need to be cautious that our lack of attention can be amplified in times like this when we're fearful for our own protection, our health, our livelihoods. Times like this in our collective and sometimes in our individual lives, with very real and urgent distractions, all making it more likely that we may not be paying enough attention. With all that fills our lives right now, we are in great danger of missing God waving at us madly from the side of the road, trying to catch our eye. We can all identify moments on our path where we regret the not noticing. But thankfully, God is both forgiving and unrelenting. I'm sure Christ gave those disciples a lot of opportunities to recognize him. And when one thing didn't penetrate the not noticing, he tried another. And the story reminds us that God is constantly showing up on the path of life, trying all kinds of things to pierce our distracted and distressed lives. From global stories of tragedy and resilience to our own intimate experiences of anxiety and real hope. God is there even to open our eyes when we can't do that for ourselves on the path of life. Just as Jesus did with the disciples in the meal when he blessed it and broke it and shared it with them. We are called to open our hearts. We call to mind our companions on this path of life, the faithful, the stranger, the friend, those who have died, and the communion of saints. May we pause in our days. May we pay attention and take the time in the moment to notice that our hearts are burning within us as God joins us on the path of life.